Welcome to a tutorial of how I created the AI B-roll for my latest documentary, The Future Shapes the Past, The Hilsner Case. So a lot of people have been asking me, how did I create the AI B-roll in my film? And specifically, how did I create the AI B-roll that focuses on the alternative suspect, Josef Paul? So going back to the real-life inspiration for this AI B-roll, there was a police mugshot from the early 1900s, and this was discovered by investigative journalist Jaroslav Mediš, who spent countless hours researching this case. And he came up with a potential suspect to fit this so-called Josef Paul figure, who was mentioned in a letter from the Zurich Police Department. And he was able to track down who would likely be this particular Josef Paul. And he found Josef Franz Paul, who was a vagabond, a traveler with the circus. He was in and out of prison, a suspect in multiple murder cases, a river drowning of two young girls, a house robbery that ended in the death of a maid near Hamburg, Germany. And this is his police mugshot from about the year 1906. So when I first started to try to generate this alternative suspect, Josef Paul, I didn't actually know that Jaroslav Mediš's mugshot existed. I hadn't seen that presentation he gave in the Polna synagogue where he showed that in his PowerPoint presentation. So I was actually just creating, from just text, text to image, a picture of some young, in their 20s, male, with an earring, which was a defining descriptor. And, I think I said, shaved, sort of fade on the side of the head there for the hair. And, this was kind of the original photo that I put in one of the early cuts of the film. The tool that I used to create this AI B-roll was exclusively Midjourney. And as you can see, I did a lot of iterations before I finally got to the one that's the money shot. Here's Hilsner walking in the woods. I mean, this is clearly way too stylized. Here you see you've got the prompt. If I click on use, it's going to repopulate all the parameters I put in. So the text prompt, in addition to the style reference, the aesthetics of the film grain and this, sort of the look of everything, lighting wise, mise en scène or whatever, and your character reference, your omni reference over here. And this is the police mugshot that Jaroslav Mediš had presented. So my prompt is as such: a 30-year-old man wearing light gray trousers, a light gray shirt, and a light gray suit jacket, holding a white wood walking stick with a fierce look in his face. This is how he was described by multiple witnesses who saw him at the time. He's looking into the camera on a footpath by the woods, 1890s era. That's key for costumes and things like that. Birch and spruce trees. It's a good, it's important because this is how it is in the actual woods near Polna. Vintage is another important descriptor. That's going to give everything that old vintage, grainy, archival look. And looking strangely into the camera. I get these four creepy options. A first 4-second video based off of this image. And I extend one of these. And, there's two ways to extend. You can do extend auto, or you can do extend manual. So I think I went with this one and I did extend manual. Add a new descriptor here, like talking angrily into the camera. And if we look over at the literature that is from Tajepuna Vrajda Jiří Kovtun, Mysterious Murder, one of the most comprehensive books on the Hilsner case, we see that Johanna Vomelova, the main witness of this strange man said that it was almost as if he was running after her, and that from his behavior, she had the impression that he had mistaken her for someone else. So he runs up to her, kind of turns her around, gets her attention somehow. And other times, actually, she said to police that the man almost bumped into her. She says, overcame her fright and asked him where he was going. And he points to the forest and says, "There's a spruce tree. I am going to that spruce tree." And shadily goes off into the forest. Other times, he was described by her as having a fierce look. The unknown man looked. This is actually somebody else that saw him in town in the days prior to the murder. There were multiple witnesses that saw this mysterious man in the gray clothes with the fierce look in his eyes. And so I extended my generations with these manual prompts and got him to speak angrily into the camera, which really worked. I got lucky. Some of this is getting lucky and trying it many, many times until you get something, in this case, which is really creepy and has the intended effect you want. What I've done with this is I've added some film noise on top. So here's the generation right here, just raw, and it's a little too dark with the shadows and crushed with the blacks and whatnot. So this film grain, is just kind of screened on top. Let's see what composite mode I used. Effect controls. I did a multiply that usually, for light stuff, usually gives it a nice grainy, rich look.
It's
peeled. Zoom down a little bit because I really couldn't get him to walk off frame per se. So I just kind of moved the frame. I scale in and move the position to the left, as you'll see here.
White peeled walking stick
is going that way. So that's when we first see Josef Paul. I bring him up again in my interview with the DA, the district attorney here in the town of Jihlava, asking, what he thought about this lone alternative suspect. And I'm playing the clip here again. I'm richening it up a little bit here. I've got this 8mm film noise on it now. And, I'm saying, these three suspects that they claimed Hilsner was a part of, all the witnesses who were corrupt, who were financially motivated, how do you reconcile their testimonies with the woman Johanna Vomelova, who just saw one person walking into the woods, not three, and she came out before the town announced a reward, and other people saw a lone man in gray, not three people. That was much later that people started to say, "Oh, we saw three people," and they looked Jewish. We're now zooming into the earring. This was a very important description of who really probably committed the murders, because as I explained earlier in this scene, there was a suspect roaming around the woods in 1897 and 1898 who attempted to rape girls, and he was described among wearing a torn gray suit and gray trousers and looking fierce or strange, of having an earring as well in his left ear. And we're now showing the earring, and he's moving his head, he's looking off, and it makes the audience feel like they're looking at archival stuff. But I am still disclaiming that this is not real. This is an AI visualization. And then after that, dirtying it up with these film grains and multiple layers of it and film frames. And I think it's a really powerful tool in telling old stories from history that you really want to visualize for the audience to keep it engaging and to help them understand it while not having access to actual footage from that era and not having it look like a blockbuster movie with the straight out the box AI stuff you're going to get. Midjourney is really great for this because as an image tool, and I have a certain style in here that, you know, it knows what I like because I've rated a lot of images. You've got that option right here, the personalize option. You teach Midjourney about what you find beautiful. But just in general, right out the box, Midjourney is more geared towards artistic shots, stylized still images. And the animation feature is a little janky and, you know, sort of like a afterthought to the image part, which they really excel in. So it happened to work for these short clips that I needed in the film. I want to now go back to just some quick shots I did for Agnieszka Hruzova, the victim. She was the main victim. And here is a shot of her back to the camera walking away along a footpath. Now, she was never photographed, as I explain in the film. You know, for poor people, rural people, it would be a luxury to have a photograph taken of you.
Because she was never photographed, publishers used a photo of her cousin for postcards and newspapers.
And then I use this shot of her walking along the footpath.
On Wednesday, March 29th, 1899, Agnieszka Hruzova left work around 5:30 p.m. According to her mother and brother, she never made it home. But
it's a really sad story. It's unfortunate that Agnieszka's memory was exploited by the anti-Semitic press. Her cousin's image was used. Her family, which may have had something to do with the murder and its cover-up, particularly her brother, and the mother may have been involved in the cover-up. They probably were okay with it being blamed on the Jews. But I wonder how Agnieszka would have felt. Thank you so much for checking this out. I hope it was helpful to you. And if you have any questions, feel free to hit me up in the comments or write me an email.